welcome to this session on email writing. Today we're going to discuss about proofreading. Proofreading is actually reading the entire document carefully before we are pressing the hit button. Proofreading is actually considered to be the final reviewing process. This is supposed to be done simultaneously as well while you're framing your document, and it is also supposed to be done at the end once you have wind it up with the document. Here, proofreading consists of two words, so let's break them down: proof and reading, which simply implies that this is a process of making the content error-free. Therefore, when we're talking about the process of proofreading, which means that it is error-proof while we have read it carefully and it makes complete sense to us. When we're talking about proofreading as a whole, there are a few things that have to be given and taken care of. Proofreading, if given to someone else, might not be as fruitful as you're doing it yourself. Why? Because the other person might not be interested in knowing the message that you're writing, might not know the crux or the feel or the tone you want to invest here. Here, we're talking about common things that we make errors with. Like, we are talking about grammatical errors, capitalization errors, numbering errors, spelling errors, inconsistency in terms of the format of the document, misplaced words, sentence structure errors, punctuation mistakes, etc. Usually it's seen that after a full stop, people often forget to begin with a capital letter, or they have framed the sentences in different tenses, moving from present continuous to past perfect to simple future, etc. So here when we are talking about this proofreading, it gives us a feel and a hang that when we have read the document, is it making complete sense or not? So here, when the basic question that arises when we're talking about proofreading is, why do we proofread? So before submitting or printing this email or this paper or this written document that we have, it is very important to carefully proofread it. Proofreading of written material is actually the final step, as we've discussed before taking a document further. Proofreading helps us to check that we have included everything that we wanted to say or we wanted to share in terms of any piece of written information. It gives us a chance to review our work and add in anything that we might have missed during the entire process. It also helps us iron out these little necessary or unnecessary things that have been missed or that have been placed by mistake. So here, proofreading as a whole shows that we take pride in our work, that it should be the best that we are delivering. Both in the working scenario and in the general scenario, it creates a kind of image in the minds of the reader. So to not to hamper that image and to move in perfection with that image, it's very, very, very important that you proofread the entire content. Simple proofreading versus effective proofreading, these are two different terms. At times, when we've written a simple content, it is stored in our mind. So while we are reading the same sentences, while we are marking the same sentences, it is common that we tend to believe that we have written the same thing that's there in our mind. So often the thing is not written there, but the mind makes us read it there. That is where effective proofreading comes into picture. What ideally is effective proofreading? So when we're talking about effective proofreading, it is the most essential or vital part of the entire write-up. When we need professional documents, professional emails. When done carefully and correctly and thoroughly, proofreading can make a great difference in your document, and it can change the look and feel of your entire email. Here, we have to make sure that we are creating and sending the perfect text, and no email should be sent without reviewing, reflecting, and revising as to what has been written. Otherwise, it's going to be a blunder there. When we're talking of proofreading as a whole, let's understand that after proofreading, we will get an error-free email that is easily easily represents our image and that can easily be sent. We have to make sure that everything, every word is correct and makes proper sense. We have to make sure that it is conversational in tone, as it is better to make, a call rather than sending something which is ambiguous. Now, if we read this sentence here, it is easily highlighted how people make capitalization errors. It is easily viewed by the reader, but at times when we tend to write the same thing, that is where we forget such small things. That's the reason they have been highlighted here in the text. We have to make sure that we're not writing any bulky email. It's simple information that we have to convey in the most precise form. But it should not be that I am cutting on important information because of making it precise. Only send them to people who really need to see them. At times, we see that sending a small report to someone, the entire team stands in BCC. That's incorrect. Only if these people are to be using this document further, that is where that document is going to make sense to them. Be clear about your expectations from the recipient. If you want a revert, write that you want a revert. If you'd be waiting for a reply from their other end, that is where you're writing and mentioning the same. Try to interpret the tone of your message. It should not look humorous. It should not sound funny. It should not look that you're not interested in making a deal. The tone should be polite. You're requesting something, you're not ordering. Be polite and always proofread. That is most important. When we're talking about email to be an important medium for communication, let's understand why is it one of the most powerful mediums of communication. When we are talking about emails recently have gained great power in terms of marketing. It's necessary to understand why email, still play a big role when it comes to even business and general commerce. Business emails, are quick, and they measure the quality of the communication that we have with clients or potential customers or suppliers or staff or anybody we are in contact with as a business firm. We have to make sure that we are writing it with an ability to talk to more than one person at a time. We are saving time, it's cost effective, it is lightening fast communication. And here we are trying to find out solutions of the problem as quickly as possible. We know that in a business, documentation is one of the most important factors which we have to consider when it comes to keeping documents intact. Space is always a constraint, and definitely space costs you more. Computing and sending email over the web has made it all the more simpler. Now you need not store stuff in heavy pen drives or hard drives, etc. You simply store it over the cloud. Buy or purchase space in case your cloud storage is full. Emails also reduce the geographic and time zone barriers. At times, when you make a call to a person, the person in some other country might be sleeping, might be at office, might be at some other scenario. Sending an email is just doing that task. You've shot your email, you're waiting for the response. Even if the person is busy at the current moment, whenever he or she is going to read the message, is going to revert for sure. It increases productivity and efficiency. When we're talking about productivity and efficiency, that is basically because we're keeping a tab over emails. What is the progress, etc. Now, if we are talking about emails, the most powerful, these are successful, cost-effective techniques that everybody is utilizing in business today. It's proven fact that email is the most cost-effective and best form of business marketing in acquiring new customers, new businesses, and it's a factual information which says that 80% of new businesses stem from existing clients, which make email all the more powerful tool. Every day we are in touch with these emails, whether they be formal, semi-formal, or informal. Emails empower us to directly engage with the customers on a personal, individual, and permissional basis. People tend to prefer engaging via emails rather than potentially meeting or having a face-to-face conversation. So when running a business in a high competitive market, that is the current scenario today, it's all the more important that we make every step count, wherein email is one of those steps which help us move forward. Now comes the basic question as to why and when do we need to shoot an email. So let's learn about this ideal situation when we should be shooting the send button. We should be clicking on the send button and shooting the email. One, when we wish to contact a person who's not reachable in person or via phone. This is a medium of communication wherein if I'm not able to get in touch with the person at the other end, I have to make sure that this is being done at the earliest. My message is being conveyed. I have to just take care of a small thing here, that my message is conveyed in the same fashion as I have to do it over call. All information is there, but it is concise and precise. The information to be shared is not time sensitive. If I want the task to be done ASAP, I might not expect to send a mail, but I'm expected to send a text or have a face-to-face conversation in that case. Because at times, when you're at office, when you're busy in work, you tend to overlook emails. But here, the solution to this problem today is those cell phone devices and your internet. We have been surrounded by 4G, 5G networks, and we are sure that they're not going to move out of our lives any sooner. They make these emails appear on our cell phone devices just like messages. So here is the solution to this problem. Next says when you need to send an electronic file to your recipient. For example, we're talking about email bills. With this COVID pandemic over the head, we have made sure that the lesser human contact we have, the better it is. So usually your shopping bills, etc., are all coming online. Even the files and the reports that have to be shared are not being printed, but they're being shared over the digital platform. Next one says when the information is to be shared with a large number of people, like a memo or the entire staff. So when we are talking about a memo being shared to the entire staff, that is where in place of sending the document individually to everybody, I can have multiple participants receiving the same document at the same time. Here, we can also talk about information that has to be transferred to everybody. For example, about a holiday or a leave or an office party. The information needs to go pan staff. That means it needs to reach out to everybody. That is where we are talking about shooting an email. The last one says, when you need a written record of communication, that is where we are again coming back to the same pointer which says, proofread what you have paid for a product or service. We need written documentation for the same. That is where emails come to our rescue. The next question that comes up is very obvious. When not to shoot an email? When we are talking about the time factor here, one, when the message you wish to send is long and complicated or even a bad news has to be conveyed. For instance, if I have to convey that this year, due to the ongoing pandemic, the business did not make great profits, that's the reason we are not going to have any salary raise this year. It's better to have a face-to-face conversation here because you never know how the person at the other end is perceiving your message. Also, when the entire message is complicated, you have multiple things to share over one message. That is where it becomes all the more necessary not to send an email and to have a face-to-face conversation. The next pointer is when your message requires additional discussions. So when I have additional discussion points to make, for example, if you remember in a previous sessions, we spoke about a good email and a bad email, wherein the bad email, there was a section wherein this person was talking about multiple things together. The feedback of a report plus an upcoming meeting. So this usually happens at office that you have to convey multiple things in one go. That is where it's always better to call people rather than shooting an email. Or send an email, but separate emails for everything. Next, when you want feedback on your work, A feedback is always a detailed document, can never ever be shared over email alone. The reason for the same is very simple, because when we are talking about sharing of feedback, it is very necessary to know how the other person is perceiving that feedback to be. And at times, the reader has understood stuff differently and you wanted to portray it differently. That is where it becomes all the more important to have this work done face to face. Next pointer is when you're asking a question that requires more than a yes or no answer. When I'm asking a question and I simply don't need an answer in yes or no, hope to see you soon or hope to see you at the meeting at 10. Are you willing to join this meeting? That is where yes or no answers would do. But if I have asked a question wherein my answer cannot simply comply with a yes or no, I would need a reason for the same. That is where it's convenient to have a face-to-face conversation. Next one says when the information is highly confidential. Again, we've been stating for so long that here when we're talking about conversations, we're talking about how to save this data, how to keep it as a record. That is where this confidential information is never ever supposed to be shared over email. When your message is emotionally charged, you're sharing something wherein the employee has to be involved with the organization. For instance, we've all seen that during the pandemic, people faced a lot of difficulties and they were not able to have proper connections at home. There was problem with the internet, problem with the device that they were logging in, and even work-life balance had become something that was not sustainable. So here, when we are talking about this situation, there can be n number of other situations when a person is going through something. That is where a face-to-face conversation makes things settle easily rather than an email, because again, your tone, your diction, your style of writing will impact how the reader is perceiving the message. And many a times it happens that the reader is unable to follow what are you trying to convey. Ask the following questions before you actually go on hitting the send button. The first question is the message suitable for an email or should it be communicated through phone? If you think that it's convenient to have it done over phone call, do not send an email. Next says, what is the purpose of sending this email? When I'm talking about the purpose, I have to make sure that in my sender's line or in my subject line, I am mentioning my purpose thoroughly, and I, as a writer of the email, am clear with that purpose. It should not be an ambiguous mail wherein my subject line talks about something else and my main body talks about something else. Next question is, what will make them read this message? What is it that is going to make my readers read the message? Again, coming back to the same point, my subject line. It defines it all. It should not be incomplete. It should not be ambiguous. For example, if I write a subject line as PFA the required file, which file are you talking about? I have not asked you for any file. Is it that you're sharing some kind of report? Everything should be proper. File, attached, for, and name of the report. Or report file for and name of the thing. Make it short, make it concise. Do not increase it by adding unnecessary words. Do the formality and style of my writing fit the expectations of the recipient? A lot many times the tone and the style of writing differ from one person to another. But it's important that with the same style and tone as the person has perceived this message, it is conveyed to the other party. Why? Because when I'm talking about conveying of this information, it's all the more important that my people get to know and they perceive the message in the same tone and fashion as I want them to. Next question is, have I provided enough context? When I'm talking about context, I'm talking about information. Is this content enough that the other person who's at the reader's end will understand the entire scenario, will be able to carry on work, and will be understanding what I'm trying to share here? That becomes all the more important. If there is problem in communication, if there's problem in understanding, the entire purpose of sending this email fails. Will the recipient be able to open and read the attachments? That's a big question. At times, we also see that the system takes up some time. It keeps on scanning for viruses. It says that this file type is not supported. So whatever attachments that I'm adding, my recipient, my reader should be able to open them first of all. Once open, they should also be able to read them. So the kind of language we're talking about here, the kind of style, the tone, etc., should be perfect there. With this, we'd bring this session to a pause here. We'd continue with the same session after a pause. Thank you so much.